it's just like sales. Recruiting is a volume game. The more people you call, the more people you talk to, the more people you sit down with, the more like you're going to find a rock star. And a lot of the times, like even if you don't have any experience, it's kind of easy to tell if someone's a rock star. But if you only interview 8 people and you hire 5 of them, then you have no reference points. Also in volume, you want to make sure that you're firing people fast. Like I've lost probably $25,000 because I waited to fire people because I was avoiding that difficult conversation and I was hoping something would change. To be honest, if someone's not a rock star in their first week of the business, they're probably not going to be a rock star in their 5th.
Welcome back to the Hard Lessons podcast. This week we have a local contractor here as well, Phil. He's out of Toronto, been killing it with the service-based business. Phil, if you could fill us in. First, welcome to the show. I can't wait to chop it up here. I know we can really relate to some other entrepreneurs just starting out. The last 4 or 5 years, you guys have been killing it, blowing some things up, figured some cool things out with marketing and delivering your guys' service. So again, first, welcome to the show and fill us in. Where are you coming from here?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Charlie. I don't feel like I deserve that intro at all, but hopefully I can provide something during this podcast to whoever's listening and to you as well. I run Toronto Glow. So this actually is a baby of a company right now. And we install permanent LED lights all around the GTA. And I came from the background of StudentWorks. So I'm sure you know some guys in the StudentWorks bubble. It's basically a company that teaches you how to run a painting company. And they coach you throughout the entire process. I did 2 years with them. And it was a fantastic experience just for rookies because I want to know my numbers. I did 200K my first year and then 350 my second. And then I hit the real world. So I left StudentWorks and I decided that I wanted to go in a totally different direction and start a fitness studio with a girl downtown Toronto. 9 months later, I decided that was a terrible idea and I lost pretty much all of my money. And now we're back at square zero, but I've got all the skills that I've learned. And in November, I started up Toronto Glow, my LED lights business, and we did about $60,000 in our first month. So I feel like I'm back and I'm looking to run a pretty big business this year. So I'm excited to chop it up here, see what I can learn. Just show that it's like a skill. It's not luck. If you know how to do it once, you could probably do it again.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's so cool. And we really need to drill that into people. It's the skills that you get. It's the person that you become on the way there. It's not what you actually do. And like you just mentioned, losing it all, but you have so much still in your brain and the hard lessons are always still with you, right? So like, what happened to school? Like take us a little bit back. You're in high school and then you started StudentWorks. Like how did that come about? Did you fully drop school? What you're doing after school? Like walk me through that.
Yeah, I guess. So high school, finished up high school. Thankfully, my mom would have probably killed me. And then I was pretty much forced by my parents to do a year of university because I was like, Mom, Dad, I want to drop out. And they're like, okay, what are you going to do? And then I had nothing, no plan, no nothing. So then they're like, okay, obviously we're not just going to let you drop out and bum around the house all day. So I did 1 year at TMU or West Ryerson. It was a fun year, but not a very productive year. I would say that I learned pretty close to zero during COVID. Didn't really attend classes. I really need quite a lot of dopamine to be paying attention to something. And I don't think school passes that threshold. So then my brain just completely turns off. It's not like I can show up like 80%. I either pretty much show up 100% or I show up at 0. And I was just showing up at 0% every single day for school. And then my uncle offered me a job in Montreal. So I moved out there for a couple months, didn't know anybody, lived by myself and didn't talk to anyone for 3 months. And it was fun, but I was like, this sucks. And then someone called me about StudentWorks and I was like, oh, I get to run my own business. I get to make money. And then I thought to myself, this is going to be so easy. And I decided to sign up. Wasn't easy in hindsight, but it's definitely the right path for me. And that's when I actually started giving 100% on something. It's when I had an opportunity to work as hard as I wanted and to see the rewards of my hard work in like a 1-to-1, as opposed to like working really hard on school and getting a 90%.
And so at that time you moved back home to Toronto and did the StudentWorks for a few years, right?
Yeah. Toronto's actually not home. It's Perth, which is close to Ottawa. So again, I'm living in the office right now, trying to get out of the first couple of months, get the cash flow running and back up again. Toronto became home after university and I just decided to stick around because I like the city.
Nice. Right on. And is your family here or you're just here? Yeah,
No,
I love it.
well, I guess my
Yeah.
brothers. Yeah. I got two brothers who live here. They're pretty sweet.
Nice, right on. Cool. Okay, so then you're moving on to that. Why did you drop it to do your fitness stuff? What was the thought process behind that?
To be honest, I had just gotten burnt out at the end of the year, and I knew that I couldn't stay within StudentWorks forever. So I thought I should make the jump as early as possible so that I can start gaining momentum on whatever it was that was going to become my full-time business. Because it was never like, oh, let's go get a job. That was never really a thought. I was like, okay, what's the next business? And to be honest, it was just like ignorance that I just didn't know how hard it was going to be. I didn't know what was required. I went into a partnership that I doubt my business partner is going to listen to this podcast. I went into a partnership that probably just wasn't the right arrangement. And we just had very, very different visions of the company. Basically I made like a bunch of mistakes. Chose a partner, and I wouldn't say they were a bad partner, but I chose a partner that was not in alignment with what I was looking for. I chose an opportunity vehicle that I didn't know anything about. I had no idea about running this business. We didn't have enough startup capital to be able to like scale quickly enough to get to cash flow quickly enough. And I wasn't passionate about it at all whatsoever. So those were kind of like the four things. And then like 9 months in, I started to realize all of those slowly. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I can do literally whatever I want. Let's figure out how to break this agreement off amicably.
Nice.
And then go back into something that I actually know what I'm talking about and make some homeowners happy.
When is this? Is this 2024?
Yeah, this is 2024. This is up until September 2024.
Yeah.
And then the lights started like late October. I started kind of just like thinking around online, trying to figure out what to do.
So you're figuring out what to do. Walk me through that. Go a bit more in depth for the lights, because I know that's your baby now. That's what you're going to be blowing up soon. And $60,000 months in your first few months is very impressive. So walk me through how that came about and what the few things that you've learned from the past you were able to use again on this third venture, you call it.
Okay, well, credit's not really due to me in terms of finding out about the lights. There's these three high school guys that I kind of mentor for free. And we do like weekly meetings together, and they run window cleaning businesses. So I kind of just like help steer the ship for them. They're pretty awesome dudes. And they came to me being like, oh, we want to stop doing window cleaning. We want to do lights, because they saw it online. And then I kind of just took it and rolled with it. And then they're like, yo, what the fuck, Phil? We want to do lights. And I'm like, no, you guys are not capable. And they sold a couple of jobs for me. And they did a bunch of quotes and they set appointments. But it's definitely a little bit out of their wheelhouse. They're in full-time school, high school. And they're not like very technical. So it would take a lot of time to train them up with their hands. And they've never, started a larger scale business before. So it's a little bit too much of a mountain to climb for them. But I was in the perfect position to take advantage of the opportunity. And for note, like if they're listening, they're also laughing at this. They're going to run like 100K each in window cleaning this year, and they're in grade 12. And I'm there to help them out. So, but shout out to them for helping me find that. And then, to be honest, like I kind of just did trial by fire. So first like day I decided I wanted to do it, I went and knocked on a bunch of doors. I figured out no one has any idea what I'm talking about. Nobody really like wants this. Then after probably about a week of knocking on doors, I found one person who like knew about them and was interested. And we did a quote. We actually did 3 quotes. I sold 2 of them, and then I sold 3 of them, and then 2 of them were funded instantly the next day because I didn't know what I was talking about, and I like pretty much set horrible expectations. And then one of them, I was like, please, can we do your house? And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever, guys. So we did his house, lost $300 on that job because I had no idea how to price. I started giving out quotes before I even looked at material costs and labor costs. I was just like, sell. So we lost $300 on that job. Then we took a bunch of Facebook ads from it. And that like one Facebook ad resulted from that job that we lost $300 on resulted in $60,000 of revenue. And that kind of kept us going from mid-October to the end of December when we shut down shop for the December break.
So from one ad, and so now you're starting to figure out, like, have you found your product yet? I'm sure if you're doing this in bulk, you're not just buying it from Home Depot or whatever. You probably bring them in from like in bulk, or I'm not sure how you'd go about that.
Yeah, no, totally. So for anyone who's interested in running an LED light business, it's a relationship with a supplier. So there's a couple of companies like Gemstone Lights and Celebrate So it's basically a company, and their entire job is to service people who install their lights. So we buy the lights from them. We became authorized to buy the lights from them. And we have a relationship with them. We're not allowed to install anybody else's lights. And then they essentially give us like wholesale prices, but then they won't sell to just like a random homeowner. They only sell to dealers. And then we install them. Yeah.
Nice. So, and did you sell that whole 60K? So did the ad blow up and then you guys were knocking like crazy? You sold, you set up the whole rest of your year and then figured out how the hell to install it and the back end, or were you a little bit more gradual with it? Like how did that approach go, and how was it attracting the talent as well? Like you're right. That's not just cleaning windows and doing simple shit. You got to somewhat know what you're doing.
Yeah, basically to take people through it, it was like week 1, knock on doors, 0 sales. Week 2, knock on doors, $9,000 of sales, $8,000 of refunds, fun. Week 3, nothing because the ad hasn't kicked in yet. And then week 4, we sold 35K. And then week 5, we sold 25K. And then week 6, we did our first install with a terrible product. It was a horrible product. And we're like, oh my gosh, this sucks. We can't do this. We're never doing this again. And then I just went to a home show in Mississauga because I heard that there was going to be some lighting companies there. And I went up to a booth of people who sell permanent LED lights. And I was like, listen, I've got $60,000 worth of orders. I don't have a product to sell. I'm willing to make an agreement right now if you guys sign me on, like, what's the interview process to become a dealer with you? And they had already rejected me previously. So I was like, I'm cooked. I basically like sat down with her for 45 minutes and we became an authorized dealer, put in like $20,000 worth of material orders that day, went back to the project that we fucked up, took all the lights down, put the good stuff up because we're not total dickheads, I like to think at least. And then
maybe.
Yeah. And then fulfilled all of our orders and everybody's happy. Seriously.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet. I love it. That's cool. So going into this season, what you mentioned ignorance debt, and I love how you brought that up because I think that's a lot of just what we're paying off of eating shit and perspectives that we need to put on a lot of these hard lessons and things that we think are brutal and awful in the moment, but it's just how quick can we get those reps and get that paid off. And I think people struggle to understand that. And from what you've learned on the marketing side, can you touch on what worked, what didn't, and what you'll use going into this year? Are we pushing Facebook? Have you figured that out with obviously that ad blowing up, or is door knocking a better bang for your buck and growing a D2D team? Like what have you figured out from the limited time you've been doing it?
Yeah, for sure. Also, just before I move into that, I do want to add to that, like that startup story. I was going to bed every single night with a headache, and I was like literally shaking in my bed when I had $60,000 orders, and I didn't know what product we were going to be installing. And I was so scared every night that it was all going to come crashing down, and that I'd have to refund all these deposits. That, and that would have just killed me. So like it wasn't easy, and it felt like 3 months within 3 weeks. And then when we started installing, we worked 7 days a week for 3 weeks straight to get all the projects done. So it was like I was trying to speed run that shit. And in hindsight, I probably wouldn't do it again, but it is possible. For advertising,
did you stop selling when you guys just went ham installing?
Yeah, we stopped selling. We're like, fuck.
Because you're like, holy fuck.
Yeah, we did our first job and we're like, oh my gosh, this is way harder than we thought, obviously, because everything's always harder than I think it is. And then we were like, no more sales. And then the high school kids were begging me to go sell because they're like, please let us go sell. And nope, you guys are cooked. You guys are done. This is not going to work. But we got everything done. Like literally December 21st was our last install day. But marketing, Facebook ads is rushing right now. My goal with Facebook ads is to get our customer acquisition cost just for Facebook ads on that singular channel below 5%. So if we put in $1, we get 20 back, which is a pretty good arbitrage opportunity. And before Christmas, we were like going crazy. I think it was like 2% customer acquisition cost. And that was with me not even calling all the leads, because we'd have like 40 leads coming a day and I'd call like 8 of them because that's all I had the time for with everything else going on. But yeah, it's going really well. I would recommend just doing a bit of research on Facebook ads to anyone listening. Alex Hormozi has some good frameworks, just like hooking people. Basically, my formula for ads that's been working super well is use a great hook, whether it's a visual hook or like an actual spoken hook. So the ad that crushed was me up on a ladder, and I had the phone looking down, and people could see that I had like this 32-foot ladder under me. And I was like, if you hate going on ladders every year, and then I like panned to the lights and I like showed them the lights. And it's such a visual product. I think that's one of the reasons it's doing well on Facebook. Basically, you want an awesome hook, and if you can have a visual hook as well, that tends to do great. And then just spew your information about your content. And then my favorite CTA is just a lead form. So just, hey, fill in the form below and we'll reach out. You can try messaging conversations, but people are flaky on Facebook. So typically that won't work. And then I don't really like landing pages, but it's probably just because I haven't figured them out yet. But tiny little tactical piece of advice. When you have any type of inbound lead, one of the best levers you can pull to increase your conversion rate is speed to lead. So the assumption that I make when I get an inbound lead is that this person is not only looking for my lights. Once they click my ad, Facebook algorithm is going to know, oh, these people like lights. So they're going to just keep feeding them LED light ads. I've heard it 4 or 5 times from clients. It's like, oh, now I'm seeing them all the time. So the faster that you can contact your clients or the prospects who have signed up for your ads, the more likely A, they're actually going to pick up the phone, and then B, they're going to get a quote from you before going and like shopping around based off like price or whatever they might be shopping around for. So I just have an automation set up with Zapier. And if you do this less than 100 times a month, it's actually free, which is every time I get a lead coming from a Facebook ad, it just sends a text on my phone. And then I get a text on my phone and it says name, phone number, and like call right away, you idiot. And then I'm just like, okay, fine. And then I just call the lead right away. And they're always like, oh my gosh, that was so fast. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just in the office right now. I thought I'd give you a call before I left for lunch. How you doing? Yeah. And like, they're so much more likely to pick up the phone if you call them within 5 minutes. But so it's like advertising is one part of it, but then kind of like the follow up afterwards is obviously super, super important as well, because Facebook ads by themselves, like if you pour them into a leaky bucket, it's just a waste of money.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's so many, whether it's AI or automations through Zapier, like there's so much stuff that's out there that we aren't aware of, and we need to use it. Like, opposed to bringing some admin staff on for a few grand a month, you can have another subscription for $50, right? So I think that's a great point. And going back to what you're saying about optimizing the ads, like split testing, I think is so big, and understanding your variables. Like, okay, let's try these 3 hooks for the next few weeks. Okay, we got it. Let's try like how we hold the phone. Maybe we show the lights first and then the ladder first, then the lights, and like just going down and having at least 5-6 variables, and spending the 3-4 months on it until you actually understand, and the amount of time that's actually required to get it figured out, I think is so much more than people think. They think it's so simple of just posting an ad, just get it up there, and wonder why it doesn't fucking work. So I think that's definitely a good point here, of putting more time into it so it actually performs, right?
Yeah, I mean, like everything, it's a skill.
Yeah, and you guys run them all in house, right? Like you're, yeah.
No.
Nice.
I'm like 22 years old and I can watch YouTube videos. I don't need a marketing agency.
Yeah, but it's a time of
yeah. I actually really enjoy filming ads. I enjoy posting ads. So maybe that's the reason that I like to keep it in house too.
So in terms of seasonality, how does that affect you guys? Like, I'm sure Christmas is huge, and you saw that with your $60,000 a few months. Like going into spring, and summer, what would you expect or estimate?
Well, I'll give you the numbers. Right now we sold 6K this week. So this was our first week back for like actually doing sales. It's obviously a lot slower. That being said, it's a skill issue. I've talked to a couple people in the space and I'm like, what's happening? I'm not selling anymore. Obviously I was assuming it would be somewhat seasonal. I just didn't know like the order of magnitude to which, like, was it going to be like 10 times as bad, or 2 times as bad, or 3 times as bad. So I think that I can overcome the seasonality of this business, becoming a more skilled salesperson, and our customer acquisition cost just is going to increase, which is okay, because if it's like anything below 10% on like a 50% gross margin, I'm happy to pay to acquire that customer. So yeah, customer acquisition process, because it's probably going to double until April. Now, I've done a bunch of research. There's a group chat for everyone who installs the same product we install. And they say that April is when it kind of starts to pick up again. And obviously Christmas is when it goes crazy. But we've kind of adjusted our marketing. Now we're kind of marketing like these as like architectural lights or like a pot light alternative as opposed to permanent Christmas lights. And then my close rate just went down like tremendously. Like before it was like, call someone on the phone. Hey, you want these lights? Okay, cool. It's probably gonna be about $4,000. Okay, cool. I'll see you on Thursday. And then I show up on Thursday and I'm like, hey, it's $4,000. And they're like, okay, sounds good. Sign. And I was like, holy shit, this is so easy. I'm the GOAT. And then, and then now it's like, I have to start objection handling and I have to build a lot more value and I need to identify the need and solve the problem for them and explain to them why now is the best time for them to make their decision and kind of go through all the options with them. So it's kind of just like, I'm like relearning sales all over again because I didn't actually have to use that much of that skill set in December.
Right.
But yeah, I'm feeling a lot more confident. For reference, so I closed 2 projects and those were the last 2 quotes I went to. So like 8 in a row, no sales. And I was like, oh, I'm cooked. And then we kind of implemented some new stuff. And so far it's going better.
Right on. It's funny. We found the exact same thing with going through COVID. Like as long as we had guys with work boots on, we had work. It was fine. And then 2024, we're like, holy fuck, like let's figure out what the word sales means and what Google ads are and Facebook ads because of how things change so quick. So I think it's definitely cool having to learn it, being forced to learn it at such a high level. Because once it's figured out, it's just a machine you put money into.
Yeah. I just heard people who are like hesitant to this. I always like to say this, like I wasn't like naturally attracted to sales. It was not something that I thought I was going to go into, and it's not something I ever thought I was going to do or try to learn. And it's obviously a super valuable skill. I would like to leverage it eventually someday. Like I would like to pull myself out of sales, but obviously like this is the price of business. This is what I need to do right now to make this happen. And that's kind of my main priority. But if you're like hesitant, just like know that you can have your own style. You don't have to like do anything that you're uncomfortable with. It's just like something you need to learn. It's a skill. And yeah, it just takes time.
People buy from who they like, right? Like if there's an actual need, they reach out to you, they went out of their way. And they're sure you're there just to help them get across the finish line, right? Like they reached out for a reason, put all their doubts aside, and you're really there to help them go through their limiting beliefs. That's it. Like it's literally to serve and help people. Now we're talking about sales and marketing and these big numbers, but if you can touch on the importance of actually installing, like when we're producing, when we're doing the actual work, it can be 2 different things. Some high school kid who has no clue what the fuck he's doing, installing these lights and taking double, triple time. And then we wonder why our margins are so low. And it's like, oh, Phil said this was so good. What's going on? I'm selling these big jobs. I'm delegating to this massive team of people who have no clue what they're doing. Can you touch on that along with the importance of training? And you mentioned to the guys you mentor, like, hey, this is a bit out of your wheelhouse. And that comes from like, there's reason behind that. So can you like touch on the production side of it?
Yeah, totally. Production's the most important part of the business. That's where you actually make money. You don't make money from salary. You make money from doing an awesome job that people are willing to pay you for. And production's super important to us in this business because we want to really leverage referrals because it's such a visual product. We want to be able to go to all of the neighbors and explain to them what we do, and they can very easily see, oh, okay, do I want this or not? So production is very important to us. We want to maintain like incredibly high quality so that we can build a brand that is known for doing good work. And I guess something that shifted from previously to now, so kind of like what I've changed, is that now we're only looking for people who are going to be within the business for at least 2 years. So we're no longer making any part-time hires. We're no longer making any like decisions. Like we're not like hiring any students anymore. We're hiring people who are like committed, who want to learn, who want to be a part of this business, who respect us and who we have respect for, and like people who we'd want to go and like, have dinner with their families. or have come over to our house and have dinner. We have like, shared values, and just really people who are going to stick around for the long run and who are willing to maybe eat a little bit of shit at the beginning if it's necessary. Hopefully not. Hopefully I can do all the shit eating for everybody. But if there is enough to get passed around, then oh my gosh, if my mom listens to this, she's gonna be so mad. Basically, we just want people who are on board, and on board for the long run, so that we do have time to train them. Because like when we were running our painting business with StudentWorks, you've got like 4 months pretty much, and you're training people for maybe 2 weeks, and then they're working for you for like 10 weeks. Whereas now we're like training people for 2.5 months, and then they're working for us for like, hopefully 3 to 5 years. So it's just like a longer time horizon. We have more time to be patient and make sure we're doing it right the first time. And there's no rush. Like we do want to have, yeah.
And I think with like businesses like this, there's limited apprentice programs or Red Seal programs, whereas you look at electricians or plumbers, they're so formalized and clear career paths, and is why they're more attractive to attracting more talent. But you look at the margins of those businesses and the margins of something like high-end landscaping or even what you guys are doing, with the margins you just mentioned are nuts. And making that clear of like, what's the roadmap when we're attract people? Like, what is 3-4 years out going to look like? And also having like mentor and apprentice programs instead of throwing out labor ads on Indeed. That's just going to attract shitty people. But if you're throwing out apprentice programs, that's people who are wanting to learn, who are honest. They don't know a fucking thing, but they're coming here to learn and to make money and to be mentored. I feel that can be a huge mindset shift as well for people starting out with their service businesses. And another thing in terms of production of why that's important is like, there's so much competition out there and anyone can do this. It's a fairly low barrier to entry. But with how we're going to compete, it's like we have revenue per hour targets of what we need to hit. We need to make a certain amount of money. And if it's taking us twice as long, that's why we're going to be so expensive, and how important the efficiency is. That's the only way we're going to compete. Sure, we're way more expensive, but we're going to compete because we do it in twice the time because our guys are so skilled and we can pump out so much more at such a higher rate per hour. And I think guys really struggle to understand that.
No, yeah, absolutely. It's always going to be a competitive market. So is painting, LEDs. I think right now I'm at a good time where there's people who are just starting to learn about this, both on like the consumer end and then also on the installer end. So if there's a time to kind of try to become big, it's now, so that we can establish ourselves. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's super low barrier to entry. Like you can pretty much start an LED business within a couple of weeks with no certifications and a ladder and a Milwaukee drill. So we need to make sure that we're maintaining high quality and that we're keeping good margins so that we can compete.
Now, what's like, fill me in on the plan of like 3-4 years. What's the plan to blow this thing up, and how do you see that happening?
Mm-hmm. I really hope I don't look back at this podcast and think that I'm the biggest idiot. Because a lot of the times when I make content, I look back at it a year later and think, holy crap, that guy's an idiot. So hopefully what I say here actually becomes true. And I'm not shaking my head at this a year from now.
Speak it into reality, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's see if we can do some manifesting here. Basically, I really like this business because it's a lot less operationally heavy than any of the other businesses I've been in. So a crew is able to produce about twice or 3 times as much work as painting in the same amount of time, and it is the same profit margins. So it's a lot less operationally heavy as opposed to having 3 crews where you can have 1 crew. So I think my hypothesis is it's going to be a lot easier to scale because we don't need as many, men in the business or women to be able to move the ball forward, which means it's going to be really sales heavy. 1 crew can produce $800,000 worth of work in a year if they're working for 40 weeks of the year. So it's not going to be very hiring heavy, which means we're only going to have 4 people working for us in terms of laborers. So they need to be literally plus. Because if there's 1 B player in that mix, everyone's coming down, and we only have, and like out of 4 positions, it's not like we have 12 positions to fill. And if one of them's kind of like a little bit of a slacker, it's going to get evened out by the team. Like, no, we need everybody to be like stars. So that's the production side of things. And then on the sales side of things, that's kind of what's resting on my shoulders right now. So I do have a business partner in this business. He's going to be running the production side of things. And for now, he's hopping on the sales train as well, because that's what the business requires. But we want to make sure we can diversify our acquisition channels, because we don't want to get murked. I kind of got like hooked in Facebook ads for painting, like 1 year to the next year for painting Facebook ads. My customer acquisition cost, like probably like 6x. So I've seen it happen before. It's really scary. Right now we get all of our business from Facebook. And if our customer acquisition cost goes to 6x, our business is done. Like, we're no longer able to acquire customers profitably. And if it is profitable, it's like not profitable enough to make it worth it. Like, we're going to end the year with net zero. So one, we need to crank the crap out of Facebook ads so that we can get to like a scaled rate, that we can start getting referrals and we can start just like being in neighborhoods. It's such a visual product. We want to get in as many neighborhoods as we can, as fast as we can, so that we can get our name out there. And if that means like slightly lower profit margins in the beginning, that's a bullet I'm willing to bite. I do want to maintain high prices, and I always can't tell if it's me being, not as strong as I should be with keeping high prices. But right now, like, volume is the play, I think. And that also means, that means volume with Facebook ads, volume with lawn signs. You're going into SEO, because none of the other companies in this space right now in Toronto are actually doing SEO. We just sat down 2 hours yesterday with one of the guys across the hall who runs SEO. And he like looked at all of our competition, did a competitive analysis. Nobody's running SEO. So it's like such a fresh market to take. And I think we're the guys to do it. And I think we're the guys to get our names out there. And it's just going to be a lot of volume and a lot of work. And we need to make sure that we're kind of putting our eggs in a bunch of different baskets and doing really high quality work so that our brand is not affected. But it's basically November to December was like a 100-meter sprint. This is like a 25-kilometer sprint. So we gotta keep a steady pace, but it's definitely something like speed's definitely a factor in this. So the goal this year is to do 1 million, which would be about a crew and a half working starting in March. Sales is definitely the lagging part of that right now, and I'm dedicated to doing whatever is needed to get that up. Past that, I don't have any number goals in mind. I just want to build a company that I'm proud of. I want to try to leverage as many things as possible. When I was doing StudentWorks, I didn't even think about like, oh, how can I buy my time back? Like, I was thinking about that, but like not actually thinking about that. Like, I wasn't like actually thinking about like, okay, how can I bring someone into my business to take these tasks? It was like, so
just day to day, right? Like the
yeah.
amount of shit we waste is so crazy if we're not doing like time audits or studying it at the end of the week or the end of the day. Is nuts. And just like a simple thing of driving and getting all your phone calls done. Like if you do both of those at separate times, that's like such a waste of time. But that's something so simple that a lot of people don't look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And hiring was a big one for me. Like, there is nothing stopping you hiring someone for a task that you do in your business that's not your priority, giving that task to that person and letting them do it. And I used to think like, no, I need to do this. This is my responsibility. Like, I signed up for this. Like, I can't have someone else do this. This is the dirty work. It's like, no. Like, pay someone to do the dirty work. Once you know how to do it enough that you can standardize it, you can create an SOP, you can hand it off to them, you can onboard them and train them. But like, I want to get as many things off my plate as possible. And that starts with selling enough that I can attract good people for my business. But yeah, for the first year, it's just going to be head down a lot of sales.
Now, for the guys, you mentioned plus players, attracting talent, and like, what does that process look like if someone's never done it before? They're starting their window cleaning or their lawn mowing or whatever it is for the summer, and they need a few more guys to help them out. Can you explain the difference between just some high school kid or bringing someone on part-time, what the result is of that, and you've seen it, and then also what the result is of properly vetting, having your interview process dialed in, attracting some sick people for the long run?
So in terms of the difference, it's going to come down to your bottom line and then also down to your time. So like when I was running my painting business, my best crew was doing twice as much work and making me 3 times as much profit as my worst crew. So like this over here was like a huge liability. They were basically like breaking even. So they were going through work and like at the end of the work, there wasn't any profit. It was partially my responsibility because it wasn't quoted well. But then also if I had put other people on that position on those projects, there would have for sure been some profit. So bad people will cost you money and good people will make you money. And then good people will also solve problems for you. So these guys, what I love about them is that they want to solve problems for me. So for example, one of them needs help with immigration and he needs me to sign some documents, and he'll text me on Saturday night. He'll say, "Hey Phil, can you sign this form? Can you print this out and sign it for me tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Yep, absolutely, bro." And then I show up to the job site and he's like, "Is it printed?" And I'm like, "No, I'm sorry." He's like, "Don't worry, I printed it for you." And it's like, I'm an idiot. Obviously, I'll take that responsibility. But it's like he's asking me to do extra work by signing this stuff for him, and I'm totally happy to do that. And he's coming prepared, and he's making less work for me. So he's like taking work off my plate. And he'll do that on the job site as well. Like I'll show up to the job site. Like some crews, I would show up to a job site, I would look around, I would leave, come back 2 hours later, and I'm like, "What have you guys done?" And with these guys, I come to the job site and I'm always pleasantly surprised by what like the work they have done left. And if there's issues, like I don't even hear about them. Like, "Oh crap, something went wrong. We need this part from Home Depot." They don't even good crew. There's something goes wrong. They need something from Home Depot. They go to Home Depot themselves. They buy it. They take a photo over their receipt. They come back to the job site. At the end of the day, they text me, "Yo, we needed this from Home Depot today. Here's the receipt." Sends me a photo of the receipt. He pays on his own card and then I e-transfer him later. So it's not even worried. Like there's so much trust built there. And then bad employees like, "Yo, Phil, I don't know what to do. It seems like we need a new missing part." And then like I have to go to the job site. I have to figure out what's happening. I have to like go to Home Depot myself, grab the part. I have to drive it back for them. I have to show them how to use this new part. Whereas like the good crew just like watches the YouTube video, figures it out, does it themselves, and then tells me, "Hey, we figured it." Like I don't even know about it. So it's people who are like just invested a little bit more than just like a line worker. It's like people who like are interested in moving like the ball forward and getting the project done, as opposed to just clocking in. And how do you find people like that? I have no idea. I got really, really lucky. It was not even me who hired them. It was my production manager. They did an interview with them. He was like, "I think these guys are awesome. They just have like a pretty good work ethic." They actually like broke a window on their first job and like did some weird shit. And they were fasting because they're Muslim. So they're fasting through Ramadan in their first week with us. So they were like super low energy. And I was like, I don't know. But they just like always got the work done, always showed up on time, were always respectful. And then we hired one guy and then he was like, "Yo, can my cousin come work for you?" And I was like, "Absolutely. You're an absolute legend. I want more of you guys. Bring your cousin." And then from that, we got 2 more cousins. So now it's like, it's a crew of 4 and it's like brother, cousin, brother, brother. And they all just like, they're a family. They're happy to be working. We absolutely love them. All their names start with Z. So we call them the Z team. And our business would not be this even close to how great it could be without them. And they know that. And,
Right on. And I think a huge part of it's looking in the mirror and people are like, "Oh, there's no work," or there's no talent out there. It just goes back to like, no, you're shit at sales or you're shit at hiring and you just haven't figured it out yet because there's so much of it out there. And I love how you mentioned speaking on the standard of like one crew compared to another crew of like that can literally make or break your business. And if you're new and don't know what a production rate is or what the production rate should be for your business, what the standard should be, and these guys, you have a crew of 4 selling you on their excuses and reason why it's taking so long. But you remember when you first started, it was taking you half the time. Like having those standards in place to be able to put production rates of like, hey, we can do in 1 hour, we can get 20 linear feet of lighting installed. Like this is the production rate and the standard. And why aren't you guys hitting this or whatever the hell the numbers are? But being able to hold guys accountable to it of like, hey, it's black or white. It's not just how I feel, or I'm not just being a dick today. It's like, you guys fucking suck. Why aren't you there? And if you're not there, we're gonna filter you out. And just the amount of people that is out there, like it's such an abundance. So it's often I feel just a mental block of like, oh, there's no people or there's no one who wants to work.
To try to speak to someone who's in their first year running a business, I would say like number 1, it's just like sales. Recruiting is a volume game. The more leads that you get and the more appointments, that calls that you have, and the more like closes you do, like basically like the more people you call, the more people you talk to, the more people you sit down with, the more like you're going to find a rock star. And a lot of the times, like even if you don't have any experience, it's kind of easy to tell if someone's a rock star. But if you only interview 8 people and you hire 5 of them, and you have no reference points. But if you interview like 85 people, then you'd be like, there's no way I'm
It's
hiring.
hundreds. It's
Yeah.
hundreds.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to like, that's when the difference actually starts to show. And then the second thing is like also in volume, you want to make sure that like you're firing people fast. Like I've lost probably $25,000 because I waited to fire people because I was avoiding that difficult conversation and I was hoping something would change. To be honest, if someone's not a rock star in their first week of the business, they're probably not going to be a rock star in their fifth. It's pretty easy to tell, and it's pretty quick to tell if somebody is going to, be a good employee because work ethic kind of shows itself in the first week. Obviously skill is something that can be trained. So if they're like making mistakes, that's not something I would see as bad. But if they're sitting on their phones, if they're moving slowly, if they're making phone calls, like that's money kind of flying out of your pocket. Not that it's like money, 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 but it's like, hey, I worked so hard to get this job. And if there's no profit at the end of it, then I'm going to go home and cry. So please get off my job site. I need to find someone better than you. So don't be scared to fire. I fired people way, way, way too late.
For sure. We've learned that lesson way too much this year. And a mentor of mine said to me yesterday, he's like, people on football teams, they'll never get in shit for letting someone go too early and seeing them succeed on another team, but they will get fired or there's consequences if the player's held on to way too long. And I feel that's the direct relation to business of like move very quick. And as the debt is paid off, you're able to identify those red flags a little bit earlier and sooner. And I do, for the people listening, want to touch on the importance of having that process in place of like, a lot of it's in our head now of bringing people on, but putting it onto paper and you mentioned delegating, buying back your time, like that's going to happen eventually. So getting it out of your head as soon as possible and refining that, it's going to keep changing, but it should be a whole lot more than just a 2 or 3 step process when you're hiring skilled people. And maybe for apprentices, it's not as in depth, but if you're looking for someone to run it through, have things like a video questionnaire. They send you a video back just to get a phone call with you of 10, 20 questions. And the amount of people that just apply because it's one button and it's easy, and just waste your time is getting people down as much as you can, going into phone calls, Zoom calls, having panel interviews with your team, right? Just firing them with questions with 3 or 4 people on your team, them sitting there. And you, when you're not asking the question, you can really analyze how they react or their persona or how involved they really are. So I think it's definitely a lot more than just a coffee meeting or Google Meet if they're good or not. And it's all going back to if people undervaluing the actual work that's required, right? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm getting a notification here that says my device is having trouble recording.
It usually figures itself out.
Okay. Should we just keep running it then?
Yeah, just keep running it. It records on both of our ends in case the Wi-Fi is bad, and then AI puts it together or something.
Okay, yeah, we can't access your video. All right, I'll just close. Oh, it looks like it's slowly coming back to life.
Nice. Did you hear any of that?
Yes. No. The audio stayed on the whole time. Yeah, I totally agree. Like one of the things that changed between my first year and my second year was the process. So it was very much at the beginning. It was just like call someone, see if they're interested, hop on a video with them, offer them the job. Like if I had to describe my recruiting process, that was essentially it.
Mine was the same.
Yeah. And then second year, it got a little bit better. And then one of my friends, Will, who came into his first year and did better than I did in my second year, explained to me his recruiting process. And then I was like, oh, like you're putting way more effort into this than me. Like you're doing way more steps. He's like, okay, first I have them come to a landing page, and then I have them watch a video, and then I have them answer some questions, and then I have them inside of a group call with everyone that they have to show up to themselves. And the show rate to that's only 50%. So already I've eliminated half the people. And then after that, I ask them another questionnaire. And then after that, I do a phone call based off their questionnaire answers. And then I do a Zoom interview. And then I do an in-person tactical interview to see if they're good at painting. And then 3 days later, I offer them the job through a phone call where I'm still kind of interviewing them right before offering them a job. And then I was like, so that's his process. And my process was, hey, are you interested in a job? Let's hop on Zoom. Oh, hey, so that's good. You can start next week. So like, obviously, you just kind of way more high quality people than me. So that it always kind of blows my mind when I'm doing something and then someone's doing it like 100 times better. And I'm like, wait a minute, like my standards are way too low. Let's do something about this here.
Yes. Yeah, that's the importance of not being. I think there's a fine line of being in your bubble and dialed in and getting the work done, at the same time talking and being exposed and networking. And people use that as the like that excuse of just being at events all day and not actually doing the hard and deep work. So I do find it's a very very fine line. Like how have you found things with as you're learning and being around mentors and guys who have done it or done it better at the same time, not avoiding the work that actually needs done?
Yeah, ironically, I try to avoid yap sessions as much as possible. I wouldn't consider this a yap session though, because we have like a structured time for it. It's like something that we're going to get some value from. It's going to be posted online. But like, I would never just like sit in a room with my friends for like one or two friends and like chill on a bed and talk about our businesses for like 12 hours. It's like, it's fun.
Yeah,
It's like stimulating, but it's like not
there's
actually.
shit to do.
Yeah, exactly. There's shit to do. I do love events. I love workshops. I try to do like we have an event that we do every week in Toronto, and I would say that's pretty much like enough for me to get my fix and then go back to work the next week.
Nice. Right on. Sounds good. Now let's I want to move directions a little bit. Yesterday, we it was very impressive. You had a phone call to me, and I think this is a good takeaway from guys, just the level of professionalism. We talk about standards. We mixed up, both of us. We had miscommunication scheduling wise, and you called me, and then you called me back. You had 3 points. You're very concise, very professional, and you got straight to the point of, hey, this, and this. And whether it's with business relationships or with clients, I think people can take a lot away from that level of professionalism and owning up to their shit in just starting out their business and being a respectable brand. Do you mind elaborating on that?
Yeah, for sure. And again, thank you, Charlie, for your patience with me. So I think, yeah, at the end of my first year running a business, I finally recognized that everything is my fault. And actually, StudentWorks doesn't like to use the word fault. They like to use the word responsibility because they've got weird words for everything. But everything's my responsibility, which means that I have control over everything. And if anything goes wrong kind of within the realm of my life, whether it's like a meeting gets messed up or a quote doesn't get closed or a client is upset, one of the things that's kind of empowered me a lot is that now it's like, where did I go wrong? What was the mistake that I made? And a lot of the times, like there is something that I did wrong. And maybe it's potentially mutual and maybe it's entirely the client's fault. But even if it is entirely the client's fault, well, maybe I should have set better expectations 2 months ago so that didn't happen. So it kind of always comes down to you when you're running a business. That's my favorite part about running a business is that there's no one here to save you. And everything that happens within your business is entirely a result of you. That's why I hated school, because I would go to school and not everything that was like happening was a result of me. And that's why I would never want to be an employee, because if I give 200% one day and 100% the next day, like my pay doesn't change throughout those 2 days, unless I'm like a commission-based sales rep. But in your business, like everything is 100% correlated to you, which means everything is your fault, everything is your responsibility. And if you take accountability for it, then I think things tend to go a lot better. And people notice that, man. Like people will remember things for a long time, and just saying like please and thank you and showing up on time. And if you mess up, like, you know, owning it up. Like we went out yesterday to go shoot ad creatives for this year, and the client's house, beautiful house in King City, one of the light strands wasn't working. And we're like, oh fuck. So we go knock on the door. Hey, Miss Michelle, like one of the lights doesn't seem to be working. We'll be here tomorrow afternoon. We're going to be fixing it for you. Did you guys notice this? They're like, oh, we didn't even notice. Like, thanks so much for noticing for us. So like they didn't even notice there was a problem. Like we came to their home to film. We noticed there was a problem. We immediately talked to them about it, and then we immediately fixed it. And it's just like, that's the level of customer service we're looking to do. And I think it's just going to pay off in the long run. It's like, that took us like 4 hours, but like, who knows what could come of that? Who knows what relationship we built there? And I think it always comes back around. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I think also, as we're talking about scaling too, of like putting those processes and standards in place as we're so small, because it's all in our head, and that standard is just common practice to us. But when there's teams of 50, 100 people, we often find that's when businesses start, that they're quantity matters more than the actual quality. I think having the scalable all starts from when you're doing $100,000, $200,000 a year in revenue. But going back to what you're saying, I would like, or back to the lesson from yesterday, like your professionalism and clients, business relationships. The first thing you started with, and a mentor of mine tells me this all the time, is like, stop beating around the bush. That is how it is. And you called me and so like, I think you said, like, hey, do you have a moment to talk? Either you want to apologize or you wanted to, anyways, you got straight to the point. Like, if it's bad news, say it's fucking bad news. And when I'm like firing employees, it's like, hey, this conversation is going to suck, or like getting right off to it, opposed to kind of beating around the bush and trying to be nice. It's like, hey, this conversation is going to suck. Do you have a chance to talk right now? And letting them respond, and then give you the permission to be like, yeah, I do have a chance. And then you just fucking rip on them because they're like, yeah, I have the time to talk. So I think that's, I don't know how to word this, but the level of how you communicate is also undervalued as well. Not only contractors, but new business owners, but the communication level of it. It's not only just the quality of service that you're providing on the house or the quality of product you're installing, but it's the whole other aspect of scheduling, client communication, and just professionalism. Like your example yesterday, coming back right away, you fixed it. They didn't even notice. And they're like, wow, these guys are fucking awesome.
Yeah. And the thing about, if you're in communication with the client, they're a lot less likely to try to nitpick at things, to find mistakes in your work. Like, if I show up to a job site and I'm just working and I haven't knocked on the door, I haven't said hello, I haven't said good morning, haven't done a walk around with them to be clear on what the project is going to be, like, the odds that they don't trust me is so much higher. And I just want my clients to trust me because I know I'm going to do a good job. And if they trust that I'm going to do a good job, then I kind of got the freedom to fuck around a little bit and, do it the way that I want to do it. Potentially some sketchy ladder placements, but don't tell WSIB. But
just being efficient, right?
Yeah, exactly. I would never ask my employees to do anything I would do myself, for the record. And the communication is just going to set the standard for everything else. Because if you have low quality communication, their expectations are going to be that you have a low quality product or service, because that's all they're basing it off of. Like, they're not experts in painting, they're not experts in LED lights. But if you sounds like you have no idea what you're talking about, and you're not talking in the way that you should, you're not using industry language, and you show up late, then they're just going to assume like, oh, this guy's all around an idiot. Whereas if you're communicating very well, then they're going to assume, oh, this guy's all around a pretty cool guy.
For sure. Everything comes full circle, especially when you're dealing with very, very high-end homeowners, for sure. Before we wrap this up, the last note I'd like to touch on is CRM softwares. We mentioned a little bit earlier the power of automation and how that's helping buy back our time, but the level of professionalism comes from organization, and it can't all just be in our head as we scale. We need to be focused on pushing the business forward, not remembering the shit what happened yesterday. What are you guys using for CRM? What does your back-end processes look like when scheduling, when quoting, when invoicing clients?
I feel like I might get a clown for this one because we actually use Notion as our CRM. So it's probably not the most robust CRM. That being said, we have decked the shit out of it. And it's what I really like personally. And I think the fact that I like it personally is good enough to, get us to maybe a couple million. But basically everything's automated within it. And in terms of the value of a CRM, like, having a spot to keep your customers' names and phone numbers and emails and addresses is important. And if you don't have that, then like, holy shit, do that. But then also having a spot to keep what color materials you need ahead of time. If you can figure that out ahead of time, so you're saving yourself a bunch of time in the future to go figure that out. How long, like for us, like an example would be like what length of lights we need, what the color of the track is, what type of control box there's going to be. If there's any specifications about the job that we need to know, what the price is, what the HST is, what deposit they paid, what the final payment is going to be, where we should park our cars when we show up. We just have all of this stuff inside of a database, because now we can just give that to our crew. Like, I literally just give the exact same page to our crew, and they just look at that and they instantly know everything they need to do, and they don't require any input from us anymore. So it's just such a time saver. It's just leveraging ourselves through technology. And the more that you track, the less that you're going to have to reiterate. So I can write down once the color of my track on my computer, or I can say it 6 times to somebody, or to 3 different people. So I just match.
And even even then they'll barely get it. Like there's
Yeah,
machines running, it's loud, they're thinking of a million other things. Like if it's not in writing, it never happened or was said.
yeah, no, totally. But I didn't really see the value of organization originally, but now like I want to not do work over and over and over again, any repetitive task in my business. If you do it more than once, it's probably because you're either doing it wrong or because it could be automated. So CRMs can take care of that for you for the most part.
I love it. Right on, Phil. Listen, let's wrap this up. Thank you for coming on here. I loved the few nuggets you dropped. What you guys are doing is super cool. Where can people find you if they want to check you out?
True. Sweet. Thanks for the shout out opportunity. So Instagram, obviously, just Phil Gauthier. And then I host a free group in Toronto for entrepreneurs. So we meet typically every Sunday downtown Toronto. We had a pretty awesome workout together. And then we go in the sauna. And then we host a mastermind. Typically, we have anywhere from like 8 to maybe 15 people max. But it's totally free. We do it out of the love of our hearts for people and entrepreneurship and working out. And so if you're beauty, pull up. And otherwise, yeah, my DMs are open. I love business a lot, and I love talking to people about business. And if you're just starting off, I have never been known to say no to a call to help. So yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Charlie.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil.